This week, we finish out our list of 100 questions that no self-respecting person would ever ask an atheist about evolution. But that brings up an interesting point. Why would you ask an atheist any of these things? Why wouldn't you just go ask a scientist? Now granted, the overwhelming majority of scientists are atheists, but that's not how this series of questions is constructed. It makes no sense, but then again, this is Christian apologetics we're talking about. You can't expect it to make sense, can you? So here's our final 13 questions, and away we go. What scientific evidence is there that macroevolution has ever occurred? Well, as I keep saying, there's no such thing as macroevolution. There's only evolution. Evolution is absurdly well supported. It's perhaps the best supported scientific theory in all of the biological sciences. Now, I'm not going to get into the evidence here. As I said last week, go get that book by Dr. Tim Barra, and it's going to explain the evidence in broad strokes in simple to understand language, which, let's be honest, is what you people need. Can you provide one observable example of macroevolution occurring today? Well, no, because there's no such thing, but you ought to know that by now. Why don't we see hundreds and even thousands of transitional forms of animals or humans walking around today? Well, we do. Every single living being is a transitional form of sorts. Every living thing has mutations that render it outside the baseline for that species. There's no such thing as a perfect human or a perfect cow. Whether those mutations are useful or beneficial and carry on to the next generation or not depends on the individual mutation. But we're passing on all of our genetic imperfections to our children. That's the very basis of evolution through natural selection. If man evolved from apes, then why do apes still exist? This is still one of the stupidest questions ever. We didn't evolve from apes. Apes and humans evolved from a common ancestor. This is like saying if you and your brother evolved from your parents, why does your brother exist? Any apologist who asks this question is a complete fucking idiot. Since macroevolution has never been observed, how can it be taught as science? Well, it has been through the fossil record. Large biological changes happen over long periods of time, far too long to see within a single lifetime. Now, it is possible to a certain degree in some short-lived species, and we have seen it there, but every time we point out these observations, apologists want a cat to turn into a whale or something stupid. These people have ridiculously unrealistic expectations. Isn't it true that Darwin said, in essence, that his theory of macroevolution would stand or fall on what the fossil record would show? Well, as I pointed out before, Darwin never said anything about macroevolution because the term wasn't even coined until long after he was dead. But in the spirit of the question, the fossil record does bear out that sentiment. The fossil record is a fantastic map that shows, without question, that this so-called macroevolution has and continues to take place. How do you account for the fact that there is virtually no fossils showing any intermediate forms? Intermediate between what and what? Evolution has no goals. We are a product of evolution. We are not a goal of evolution. Human beings were never planned. We just happened. And whatever ends up replacing us, that won't be planned either. That's just going to happen. You people don't know what the fuck you're even talking about. Isn't it true that the fossil record reveals fully formed kinds in their own right? No, because there's no such thing as a kind. It does show functional creatures, nothing more. Some are more successful in their ecological niches, and some less so. That this question is being asked at all just proves that our apologist doesn't even have a high school knowledge of the subject, which is no surprise. They probably never graduated from a legitimate high school. How do you explain the clear contradiction between the laws of thermodynamics, which are among the most well-established laws of science, with the theory of macroevolution? We'd have to point out these clear contradictions, of course, because they don't exist. But what I suspect is going on here is a confusion over the nature of the laws of thermodynamics, particularly in regard to the idea of open and closed systems. See, there's this big ball of fire in the sky, the sun. That's what makes the Earth an open system. We gain light and heat and radiation from the sun, which drives the engine of evolution. If you can't get that through your head, you've got no chance. Astronomers tell us that there are 100 billion galaxies in the known universe, and hundreds of billions of stars in each galaxy. According to the laws of thermodynamics, if energy can neither be created nor destroyed, where did all the energy in the universe come from? Well, the Big Bang. I feel like I've said that before. Okay, I know I have. But one thing he fails to understand, the laws of thermodynamics, like all the physical laws, they didn't come into existence until the Big Bang. Therefore, that's just an irrelevant question. If evolution were true, why don't we see people who live in relatively unpolluted areas living to be 200 to 300 years old? Because you're an idiot. No, alright. Because people don't die of old age because of pollution, they die because their biological processes break down. There is a limit to how long cells can keep reproducing correctly. When they stop, we get things like cancer and other diseases. Mutation is a bitch. So then, was Darwin correct in his assessment of the simplicity of cells? Well, Darwin died almost 150 years ago. He was wrong about a lot of things and operating with less knowledge than we have today. I really don't get why creationists spend so much time talking about Darwin when nobody in the scientific community really cares about him today. Since Darwin was wrong about cells, which are the basic building blocks of life, how does this affect his theory of macroevolution? Well, he didn't have a theory of macroevolution, and nobody gives a damn about Darwin. Try some modern evolutionary theory, why don't you? So this brings our look at what I think turned out to be 96 questions that no theist in their right mind would ever ask an atheist because they get their ass handed to them, to an end. This was just stupid. And I can't be surprised that it was stupid because the people who ask questions like this are stupid. They have no basic education or knowledge of the subject matter. They just hold these really ludicrous beliefs about absurd imaginary friends in the sky and think that qualifies them to poke holes in one of the most strongly supported scientific theories in history. But as I've said before, these people don't care about reality. They only want to revel in their emotional fantasies. These aren't questions to ask atheists. These are questions theists ask themselves and then nod knowingly like they have any clue what the hell they're talking about. No credible and scientifically knowledgeable person would ever take any of these questions seriously. They're a joke, asked by people who don't know how idiotic their beliefs actually are. And that, my friends, pretty much describes religion. Sad, isn't it?